Okay, so you ever wonder how, when you type a quick hi on WhatsApp, it reaches exactly the right person on the other side of the planet in literal seconds? It honestly feels like magic sometimes, but I promise you it's not. Behind the scenes, there is a hidden 7-layer system that actually makes the entire internet work. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to demystify the system. We'll explain the OSI model, how it's layered, and their attack threats. Because if you truly want to master cybersecurity, you absolutely have to know the battlefield.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the hidden rulebook, the upper layers and their attacks, the lower layers and their attacks, and finally, the engineer versus technician mindset. Let's get right into it. Part 1. The Internet's hidden rulebook. So, going back to that WhatsApp message, how does data move so flawlessly? Well, to answer that, we gotta look at the chaotic early days of the internet. Man, it was basically the Wild West. Every tech company had its own proprietary networking rules. Vendor A's gear literally couldn't talk to vendor B's gear. It was a complete mess. Just constant network failures, impossible troubleshooting, and vendors just playing the blame game whenever something broke. Enter the OSI model. The Open Systems Interconnection model fixed all of that chaos. Now, really quick, and this is super important. The OSI model is not a piece of software. It's not physical hardware you can go buy. It's a conceptual framework, a standard language and rule book that breaks down crazy complex networks into 7 logical, easy to troubleshoot layers. Think of it like a 7-story building. Every floor has a specific job. If the 3rd floor completely fails, everything above it just halts. By breaking it down like this, troubleshooting becomes incredibly precise. What's really cool here is that this complex tech framework perfectly mirrors a regular physical courier service. I mean, think about sending a package. You write a message, pick a courier, the best route is mapped out, it's loaded into a delivery van, and finally it hits the road. The OSI model slices up digital communication using that exact same logic. It's brilliant.
All right, moving on to part 2, the upper layers and attacks.
So let's take our virtual elevator all the way to the penthouse. Layer 7, the application layer. This is the user interaction layer. But actually, scratch that. There's a huge misconception we need to clear up right away. Your web browser, like Chrome or your Gmail app, they aren't layer 7 themselves. Rather, they use layer 7 protocols, like HTTP for web browsing, FTP for files, or SMTP for emails, to generate data requests. It's basically the layer right up against you, the user.
And because humans interact right here, it's arguably the most dangerous layer. Attackers know we're the weakest link, right? So this layer is a massive target for phishing, SQL injections, and malicious file uploads. To defend against layer 7 attacks, you can't just cross your fingers. We require robust web application firewalls, rock-solid secure coding, and honestly, a ton of user awareness training. Stepping down one floor, we hit layer 6, the presentation layer. Think of this guy as the network's data translator and bodyguard. If the sender is speaking English and the receiver only knows Hindi, you need a translator. This layer formats data into readable files, like JPEGs for images or MP3s. But the absolutely crucial part for cybersecurity, this is where data encryption and decryption actually happen. Since encryption lives here, layer 6 is the absolute front line for your privacy. A classic threat here is SSL stripping. That's a nasty man-in-the-middle attack where a hacker forces your secure HTTPS connection to downgrade to unencrypted HTTP, letting them just casually sniff your data. To block that devastating attack, your best defense is enforcing strong TLS encryption standards and proper certificate management. Because if layer 6 fails, your private data is literally an open book to anyone watching.
Down to layer 5, the session layer. This is your connection controller. You know when you're on a Zoom call and it just abruptly drops, or a Netflix stream randomly freezes? Yeah, that's a session issue. This layer is fully responsible for starting, maintaining, and eventually killing the communication session. It manages exactly who talks, for how long, and when it's time to hang up. And that is exactly why attackers are obsessed with layer 5. If they can pull off a session hijacking attack or swipe your cookies, they don't even need your password. They can literally just walk right into your already authenticated session. No way you want that. So defending this layer means you absolutely need secure session tokens, strict timeouts so old sessions actually expire, and HTTPS everywhere to protect those tokens in transit. Part 3, the lower layers and attacks. Let's descend into the heavy-duty stuff. Welcome to layer 4, the transport layer. This is where the really serious networking decisions get made, specifically the massive trade-off between speed and reliability.
We've got two main protocols fighting it out here. First, TCP. It's reliable, it guarantees delivery, checks for errors, it's perfect for emails or banking. Then there's UDP. UDP is lightning fast, but it promises absolutely nothing. It just blasts data out into the void and hopes for the best, which is exactly what you want for live online gaming or streaming, where real-time speed matters way more than dropping a single pixel. Now, because Layer 4 manages all those connections, it is the ultimate playground for attacks on service availability. We're talking large-scale DDoS attacks and SYN floods. Attackers abuse this transport layer by just flooding a server with massive amounts of fake connection requests until it chokes, blocking real users from getting through. To survive down here, rate limiting, load balancers, and specialized firewall rules are an absolute must. All right, down to Layer 3, the network layer. This is literally the routing brain of the internet. If you're sitting in India and loading a site hosted in the US, Layer 3 figures out the exact geographical path your data packet is going to take. It handles all the IP addressing. To put it simply, without routers and this layer assigning IPs and slinging packets across continents, the internet as we know it would just not exist. But the threats down here are incredibly sneaky. Attackers love using IP spoofing, basically faking their IP address to trick your network into trusting them. Or they might attempt route hijacking. Since this whole layer relies entirely on trust and addresses, secure routing protocols, strict access control lists, and nonstop network monitoring are your best shields against Layer 3 attacks. And finally, we hit rock bottom, the foundation. We can group these last two layers together because they deal with your immediate physical environment. Layer 2 is the data link layer, handling local network communication using MAC addresses and switches. And below that is Layer 1, the physical layer. This is the real, tangible world. We are talking literal fiber optic cables, Wi-Fi radio waves, and raw zeros and ones pulsing as voltage. When you look at local threats, Layer 2 is highly vulnerable to ARP poisoning, where an attacker on your local Wi-Fi secretly sniffs your traffic. Defending that takes strict local network segmentation, like using VLANs and solid port security. And down at Layer 1, the threats are literally physical. Someone tapping a cable, or, just an unauthorized person walking into a server room and pulling a plug. If Layer 1 goes down, the fanciest software in the world won't save you. You defend this with actual locked doors, physical access controls, and CCTV cameras.
Which brings us to part 4, the engineer versus technician mindset.
So, why does knowing all this actually matter for your career? Well, when a network goes down, your average technician just relies on random guesswork. They reboot things, type random commands, complain about their tools. It's a huge waste of time. But a true engineer, they use the OSI model. If a website is offline, they isolate it. Is the cable unplugged? Okay, Layer 1. Is it a routing issue? Layer 3. Did the web app crash? Layer 7. They don't guess. They isolate layer by layer, which means they solve the problem exponentially faster. Let's wrap up this explainer with a thought I really want you to take to heart. Cybersecurity is not about tools, it's about knowing where to look. Tools are going to change every single year, but the OSI model, the underlying logic of how data flows and exactly where it gets attacked, that stays constant. So are you going to keep relying on guesswork and changing tools, or are you ready to master the foundational layers and become the problem solver who always knows exactly where to look?